Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to the monumental 50th Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with co-host Bryant W. Today's topic is truly letting go of things that no longer serve us. Bryant, would you like to tell us what this means to you and why you chose this topic for today?
Hey, good morning. Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for asking me about the question. I've just noticed that there's a couple themes that seem to consistently accompany this new way of approaching life. And one of the things that I find myself constantly having to update is deciding what is, whether it's time spent, company, motivation, investment of different parts of yourself, what is truly in alignment with the person that you're actually being kind of like drawn out to be compared to who I had perceived myself to be before. So letting go can be a combination of actually no longer doing something, or it could be the alleviation of how I react to things as well. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I like how you put that, and I'd like to reply ditto to that. And for me, really, I found this morning was a terrible morning for my character defect of anger to come out. I just had like
Yeah.
the shittiest morning with my dog, daughter, and wife.
Okay.
And so, like it says in the step 4 in the 12 by 12, right? That
Yeah.
like, we're take it too far, Tonys, with our defects and shortcomings.
Yeah.
Like a certain amount of anger serves you as a function in your life, right? But
Correct. Yeah.
when it's just like senseless response and
Yeah.
overdone and really not in control, like they didn't make me mad this morning. I
Sure.
reacted angrily, you know
Yeah.
and the weird thing is that my day on my own started with this glorious serenity. Like it was
Did
like
it?
there was this moon setting right into the ocean. It was like so
Oh,
red, so beautiful. I was doing laps in the pool, getting out, photographing it, going back, doing more laps. Like I
really?
had this like mystical. I'm going to send you some pictures after this podcast. I had this
Yeah, that
mystical
sounds amazing.
mystical morning, and then it's like as soon as there's other elements, then it's like totally angry, negative responding, and it just I thought what a topic for today because I'm obviously incapable currently of letting this shit go. And I'm like,
Hey,
and that to me is for me is the most powerful ones of these podcasts when it's actually something that we need to work on, not something that we've mastered, like I
well,
and
well said.
so yeah, I mean, and that's what that is for me. I got a question for you to
Please.
start off with. Okay. So if we
Yeah.
think of happiness as a spiritual asset, we could see it both as a gift and a goal. We work towards it by letting go of those things that we can see standing in its way and leave the rest to a power greater than ourselves. Humility and empathy are essential to a rewarding spiritual life. As we find the deep joy that comes to us through our practice of compassion, we find that happiness is much more available to us. How do you practice compassion in your daily life?
Oh, wow. That's a
I,
very
I like
well
to make them
worded.
thick.
Yeah, that's very well worded. And all those things I think are very relevant to the idea of happiness. So at the end, you said it was, how do you bring
so
compassion
I,
into your day?
So, as we find the deep joy that comes to us through our practice of compassion,
Yeah.
we find that happiness is much more available to us.
Yeah.
So, how do you practice compassion in your daily life?
Okay. So, really nice question. I think that's probably, if I'm honest, one of the things that I'd like to continue to upgrade.
Hmm.
And I think that we, or I should say me, I, better than I ever did before, combination of I no longer compare myself to other people as much. And I also am a little more, I guess, aware of the simple fact that if I'm having to be this, I don't know what's the word, diligent about not living out of character defect, I have to grant the same opportunity to everyone else. Like I just feel like I'm a little better. I wish it was a lot better, and maybe it is. I just don't notice it at being compassionate in general. Um, I think we all have a few people in our lives that reflect back to us and bubble up. Like you were very honest at the beginning about I'm having this amazing serene moment. The moon is setting into the ocean, and then and it's almost hard to understand how that's possible in such a short period of time. Um, yeah, just trying not to dump my pain on others and trying to not absorb others' pain uh, as much as I used to. Those are really good techniques, I think, for that word compassion. And like, I feel like for myself, I know when I'm happy, and I don't want to sound like whatever the word is, but like, I really do enjoy peace more than happiness now. Like, I'm really actually trying to feel like they talk about being comfortable in your own skin or um serenity. Like what a like such a much more valuable companion within yourself than what I used to perceive happiness to be or what I thought happiness looked like. And I think that you get those moments of being much more comfortable and confident when you are granting compassion on a daily basis to the best of your ability.
Nice. That was amazing. You know, I'm really grateful that we're spending this time together today
Me
because
too.
I really appreciate your perspective, and I find our conversations very grounding in my own life, and I really enjoy it. Um,
Me too.
you know, this question, like, my oldest client I ever had was 94, and her
Wow.
name was Rosa Metzler, and she had a
Yeah.
tattoo on her arm. She had a Nazi camp number tattoo on her arm. Like she had been
Did
to the
she?
death camps. She had been to the death camps when she was young, and
Yeah.
you know she was this tiny, the greatest painter I've ever seen of scenery.
Really?
Like her paintings looked like real pictures, even beyond. And but the thing was, is she turned to me at one point. Like I had to see her multiple times during the transaction because I also helped her her second husband sell a place just as he was dying of cancer. And
Really?
I was over there and she turned to me and she said, you know, she said, the one thing I've learned in life. And I'm like, this is going to be important. This is 94 years of wisdom right here, right? You know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
and she said, no one thinks they're the villain. She said, no matter what, she said, no matter what, everybody is just acting out what they have come to think is okay from what they've been through and what they've witnessed in their life. You know, and for somebody who had watched family members getting gassed, to be able to have that kind of compassion, it opened my brain up to to
Yes.
like, you know, like I've tried to see that hurt little kid inside people, you know,
Yes.
who maybe was beaten so bad that they think that the beating's okay, or who was yelled at or whatever, you know, like there's something that in their mind is okaying their behavior, which could seem radically abusive to other people.
Sure.
And it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that we have to just sit there and take it, but it
No.
that trying to understand where they're coming from, like
Yes.
if that person's not seeing themselves as the villain, and so that has been a tool for me for the last 5 years to
Amazing.
like where I try to bring that in there. I'm like, okay, like I'm like, where's this hurt child inside them, and where and
Yeah.
how and how how can they possibly think what is occurring here with words or actions is okay? And then I
Totally.
could
Yeah.
bring to mind some pretty horrible things, and then I'm like, whoa, okay, well, like at least neither one of us is living there right now, you know.
Sure. Sure.
And I would say that, for me, that's, one of my tools. And I would like to say that I have a lot more compassion than I do, but I feel that it's definitely a work in progress. And
Yeah.
on days like today, I feel like I don't have any. I don't have any. Like I'm spending more time trying to defend my position than I
Yes.
am finding compassion, and
Oh,
justifying why I'm hurt, and yeah, so
yeah.
that would be my answer to that one. Do you have a question for me now, Bri? And
I do. Can I just quickly reflect, just very quickly, what you were saying?
yeah, I like when you do
If
this.
we're if we're lucky too, I think if we're the more time we're granted in this, it's just a quick thought. It's like we get better at being like, oh, I'm doing this again, like so
Hmm.
they say sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but I think you would probably can relate that we just get more and more of these same responses, and we're like, it's like I'm doing it again, and that's I think sometimes how it works with the six and the sevens. It's like you basically eventually slowly let go, right, of these reactions and these responses, and it usually takes practice.
Well, one thing I wanted to say when you were making one of your first responses, that awareness is the first step. You
Yeah,
can't modify a behavior that you're not aware of. Or you would
very
have,
true.
like it would be blind luck if you modified it in the right way without being aware of it. Like, of all the ways that life can change you, if you don't have any awareness, you're just like ping ponging around,
You're
like
right.
from action to reaction. And so, like the very first step is seeing that we have the defect or the shortcoming, which is why,
Yeah,
boom, as soon as, we've made some admissions and surrendered and that's the first thing they do in the program is,
yeah,
hey, step forward. Let's get to work on seeing things as they really are.
sure. Well said.
Hmm.
Yeah. So my question, and I hope it's not um, too
You don't have to
odd.
worry. You just ask whatever the hell you want
Okay.
to.
So have you seen? I have the question is: have you seen that? So we've had to let go of what we perceive as bad character defects and or using or drinking.
Mm,
We had
mm,
to let that go fundamentally, but also too I think we're very, very, very eager to let go of like what we were just discussing, like poor responses to people, lack of compassion, dishonesty, like the main ones, being
mm.
self-centered. But have you noticed that you've also because we had an idea of who we were before, and I think step one gives us the humility to maybe take another look at who we think we are. So have you ever thought during this process that you've had to let go of what you called good parts of yourself as well, like things that used to serve more of your ego, and you realize now,
Ab-
like it was almost like an asset, but now you realize you actually would prefer not to have that in your life.
the very first thing that comes to mind is like white lies.
Sure.
The very first thing, in the sense that it's like either you're honest or you're not. And there's no kind like there's no kind of honest, you know like there
It's
isn't,
true.
like there's a lot of shades of gray between black and white, but there is no kind of honest. and
Yeah.
and so that one's a
God.
real struggle because the one thing that being completely honest does it also shatters the illusions that others have of who you are while you're people pleasing.
Sure, my
And
friend.
and that it can be a painful rebirth for you and your family, and friends.
Sure.
You, like I don't want to, like, if I'm not pretending for your sake, I'm not pretending for my sake either.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I don't know why I'm
I'm
laughing so much. It's just so true. It is.
It's all right. I'm loving it. I kind of feel like, okay, we got some comedy recovery happening. We got some joy in
Yeah.
recovery. Look at him
Well,
smiling, everybody.
the reality is some of it is quite funny because you're like, wow, like I can't
Yeah.
believe we've all been doing this to each other.
Well, it was like pity parties, man. Like pity
Sure.
parties. I literally had
Mhm.
friends that was our entire relationship. It was a calling and a joint pity party. And we would just like fester in our own sorrow for ourselves, and then like, woe is us. Like, and then now, like, I have a really hard time even talking to them. Because I don't want to
Mm.
go to a pity party. I don't want to hold one. I don't
No.
want to be there. And so,
Uh,
like, that is just something, along with um
Beautiful.
people pleasing. Like, people pleasing made a lot of other people happy.
So
Like, it
that's
really
great
did.
answer.
If
Yeah.
like, if you're good at people pleasing, man, they really love when you do it well.
Sure.
Because to them there's no ripple in
Man.
the world and they can do no wrong. Because you're
Sure.
so worried about pleasing them that,
Well,
like,
yeah.
you're sacrificing so much of your present moment trying to prepare for their perfect future, you know
Sure.
yeah.
That's
And
wild.
yeah, and it's so, I mean, there's a lot of things that served me in the sense that,
Yeah.
kept others in a greater sense of
Sure.
happiness around me, but it really did not reinforce any integrity in myself. It's
Amazing.
something that I really want to, that it's one of the things that I started praying while I'm swimming right now, doing my laps. And,
Did you?
and honesty and integrity are the first two on my list right now of things that I'm praying for. And
Amazing.
just trying to bring a bit more of that into myself.
Beautiful. You
Yeah,
you answered that amazingly. Those are two things that I hadn't necessarily come to my own thoughts, which is
that's
why
great
you.
because now you're going to fill in the rest with your answer.
Yeah. So I remember I was sitting at a meeting once, and I was beside this gal who has now passed away, and she was just such a wonderful woman, and I think we're talking about that whole idea of surrendering, and I was sort of admitting that I'm now having to let go of the stuff you were just describing, like that way of navigating social situations. I think I mentioned before this idea of no longer requiring validation from other people to feel okay about yourself. That can get pretty that can get pretty lonely sometimes, where that you have to find the resource within yourself to not let your mind convince you that you're not good enough and that you're not off on the wrong track, so I used to go to other people to get that feedback, and it to like cultivate that within yourself, especially like you said, once when you call your own bluff and you're like, oh, like I've been sort of like, broadcasting a certain version of myself that I'm no longer even comfortable with, never mind trying to get someone else to buy into it. And so it's very relatable what you said. And so I brought up that meeting and this older lady, and I remember she tapped me on the back and she was like, kind of like, it's okay. Cause she like knew what I was going through. She knew that I was discovering that this is such a change in one's sense of self that even what we might call the good stuff or the assets have to be sometimes require a second look, And I felt like
Yeah.
I was sort of grieving a part of myself that I needed to move on from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm right in that point, dude, where there's some major things inside me that it's like the two can't exist.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like the old and the new cannot exist in the same place and have
This is right.
integrity. Either one.
Correct.
Like either I am what I was or I am what I'm going to be. You
Yeah. Yeah. And
know,
there's a letting go there because there's
and
almost,
and
yeah.
it goes back to that. It goes back to that lack of integrity. Like, there's
Yeah.
there. It's like you can't have integrity and have two different yous going on. That's the opposite of the definition of it. Like,
Right.
and so,
Yeah. It's integrated.
uh
It means it's been
I'm
brought
really,
in.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like your principles are who you are. It's not like the principles aren't who you want to be.
Yeah.
Like you either, like I could just sit there and be unloving, uncompassionate, intolerant, and be like, hey man, I'm living by principles because I want to be them. That's
Right.
not integrity.
Right.
Like, the
Well,
desire for something is not the
yeah.
same as having done the work repeatedly and accepting the failures and growing at whatever rate the universe is going to provide for you.
Oh, well said. I'm glad you said that because that's what I was thinking too. It's like this is a process, you know.
Yeah.
Like I used to get one
Okay.
of
I
the
got to,
oh sorry. Is there a
no,
delay?
no, go, go, go.
Okay. Well, I
Yes.
was just gonna say, I mean, there was an old part of me, like you talked about the pity party or the resentment or the anger. Like I had a handful of moments in my life where I said F it. I just said F it and I went and did what I was gonna do. And I got in a lot of trouble. But it almost felt good to just say F it, like I'm just like bring it on, and it was brought.
It is more work, I believe, to me at this point in my life, to be a
Yeah.
principled person than to be a person who's just self-centered and doesn't give a fuck.
Oh man. That's why so few people take it to the level it needs to be taken to. It's true.
Yeah, yeah. It's really easy to be uncaring, uncompassionate, unaccepting. That it's work in being
Every
able
man for
to
himself. Yeah.
maintain. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, so we can hang on for years to a resentment that could have been
Mhm.
resolved in a simple conversation. Facing
Yeah.
uncomfortable situations and taking loving action is a demonstration of maturity and grace. Emotional
Yeah.
maturity is a reward for letting go of anger and resentment. Has this been the case in your life, Bryant W? Or should we say BW?
BW.
BW.
Yes, that has been the case for me. My first year of living in this world without my addiction was in Toronto. And right before I left, I was so blessed, give or take one or two, to complete my amends to the best of my ability at the time. And it was like I had this chapter of my life. I lived there. There's all these people, there's relationships, my family was there. It was like this major relief, restoration, reconciliation. I do believe there's this strange paradox about self-centeredness or self where like it actually is still sort of selfish to do some of these things, but it's so you can have a better relationship with yourself. I don't know how it works, but um anyhow, asking people to witness this this idea of admittance of wrongdoing. I was living out of an unhealthy part of my soul. I am an alcoholic. I am doing something about it. This is what I'm learning. This is why I think I did that. And I'm terribly sorry if in that process I harmed you in any way. I won't do it again. And I'm really trying hard to make sure that I move forward in life so that this isn't something that, has any sort of effect on anyone moving forward. Pretty powerful. And so I guess that was like a huge change for me, because then I moved away and I kind of had like a fresh start, but it wasn't because I ran away or I was trying to get away from
Mhm.
anything. I actually was able to like, it's like it was incredible experience. I don't really know how to describe it, but it really was special. Like, face that fear of like what everyone already sort of knew, and that I was struggling with this thing in my life, but then to actually do something about it and move on. There's something really powerful about that.
And do you feel that that process allowed you to be free of anger and resentments you were carrying?
Yeah, I
Or
appreciate
do
you
you,
tying that back in, because I kind of that
no,
but
I just want, I'm trying to clarify just for the listeners,
it's
because
really,
there's
yeah, it's
probably
really
a lot of people listening probably have never gotten to the amends point. Like, you know, you have to
very well
consider
said.
that a lot of people relapse by the 4 or 5. So what Brian's talking about is, you know, kind of in steps 8 and 9, where you make a list of the amends you need to do, and you make
Yeah,
these amends when they wouldn't hurt other people or you. And so,
correct.
you know, so you're saying that for yourself, that helped you let go of anger and resentments, that process?
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So similar to 4, I was relieved of more bondage of self.
Yeah.
And I think that is an amazing little statement of like, they talk about it. It's like all these different forms of fear that manifest in our lives. And it's all based in like an insecure idea of oneself. And what could be more dislodging, to be comfortable to like know that 30 people think you're this or that, or you owe somebody this or that, or those, if those people found out about this or that, they'd never talk to you again, all these different things. So the fear and resentment can be directed at others and certainly inward. So I just found that when I got to that point in that transition, that I was really alleviated of that bondage of self. So the resentment and the anger was definitely minimized. And that's the difference again between manageable and unmanageable. Like, I started feeling like my life was becoming manageable. I started feeling
Mm.
hopeful. I started feeling like I had a healthy self-esteem. I thought, maybe there is hope here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing kind of the genius that's inside the order of the steps. You
Yes,
know,
sir.
like if you really try to do them out of order, I don't see how you would get the same benefit, because there's like an equilibrium of hope and faith building across them
Yeah,
that
you're right.
is it's necessary for the next step to be done right, for the
Yeah,
previous one to have been done right as well. You know,
you're right.
like just like jump in, do some prayer and meditation. Start at 11 and see how well you stay straight. like, you know, like I
It's
honestly
true.
think,
Yeah.
like I just think even, like imagine someone doing that, right? I don't think that you would even have the same ability to pray for the right things intentionally inside you,
You're right.
because you wouldn't even
Totally.
have been able to see so much that you see from the step work.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
you'd still, yeah, you're right.
mhm. So, for my
How
response
about
to
for
this
you?
question,
Yeah.
I certainly don't feel very emotionally mature today. So,
Okay.
like, I feel like, I'm still a novice inside the program. Being able to read a book, being able to do the steps a couple of times doesn't necessarily mean that I've done anything but start chipping the top of the iceberg. Like
You're right. Yeah.
I've met a lot of old timers down here at the in-person meetings that I've gone to
Yeah.
down here in Mexico. And, if anything I'm learning is that I just need to remain the student, and that I don't feel that I have a fraction of the emotional maturity in certain areas that I would like to be able to be delivering the person the people around me deserve to have treat them.
Huh. Well,
You know,
that takes some courage to say.
yeah, and but you know what? I was like, part of me wanted to cancel today, honestly, and then I was like, you know what? It's okay for me to go on and be vulnerable. It's okay for me to go on and just show that this is today's struggle, and that you
My
know what,
friend, yes.
this is the weakness. Like for anybody out there sitting there and being like, why aren't I better on this front? I'm right with you. Because there's
Yeah,
moments like I can go from serenity to shithead in like
correct.
40 seconds. 40 seconds I could go from serenity to shithead. So like, I'll call it my recovery roller coaster. Like it's like I'm way
Yeah.
high and then boom, I'm way down. And the beauty of that roller
Oh,
coaster is that it keeps going up and down and it's not just sitting in one place taking a shit all day. Like I
very well
literally
said.
went from hating the moment, not thinking I was going to be able to function on this, to having this amazing conversation with you. I'm feeling a ton of love. Like the
Yes,
roller
sir.
coaster just climbed back up a hill. So,
That,
that's one of the beauties of this program is that I don't have to shit
well
in the
said.
shit pod all day. Like I don't have to sit
You
there
do
all
not.
day. Like that
You
would
do
be a
not.
choice, and that would probably be me, trying to have a pity party. So it's just like I don't want a pity party. Let's have a serenity party instead.
Well said. I can relate. Yesterday, I had a similar experience. Yesterday, it didn't take up the whole day, but there was a brief moment where I was like, "God, I really wish I had responded better to that." And man, I wish that love had been the principle in that moment. But we will grow from it.
Shoulda, coulda, and woulda. Best friends with the past. Best friends with the past.
It's all so wild. So is it time for another question?
It certainly is a BW question.
BWs. So yeah, I had touched on what has your experience been well helping other people that same grace of letting go of the outcome. Um, as we just mentioned, some people don't get to the amends and whatever the path is, but how have you matured in your time extending the solution to others and not being attached to the outcome of working with them?
Okay, so first of all, I'm like 100% sure that you can live by God's will easier than me. Like it's real easy for me to be like, hey, Brian, man, just let it all go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like like I have a 100% faith that it's easy for you.
Sure. That's
And,
awesome.
okay, so if, I'm going to relate this to Sponsy's situation. Like
Correct.
that's kind of what I felt like you were inferring a little bit,
Yeah.
because inside the program, really, that's other than going on meetings, like once we both share at a meeting, I'm not going home and being like, is Brian doing his step work? You know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, when you're setting up appointments to meet people like sponsees,
Sure.
first of all, what I've come to realize is that I can't expect anybody to be like me with their steps. In that, like
Sure.
I really pushed myself hard and tried to be vigilant on them. Wasn't definitely wasn't perfect, but like definitely was thorough in a way that
Fearless and thorough.
yeah, that's right, because I wanted to fear less. I wanted to not be looking back at more stuff because that was trapping me in the past.
Nice.
And so, you know, first thing is I think I find it easier to give grace to others in a lot of circumstances. Like even if like this morning can be a moment of anger, right? Like I think I will carry my anger towards myself for my reaction more of the day than I will towards the other people. And that's,
Yes.
And so, in the sense of working with sponsees, I mean, one thing I won't do is I won't tolerate you telling me how much you're still suffering and then not doing your step work. Like I'm just
Yeah.
like if you're like, hey man, I'm just not getting any relief. I'm still going crazy, man. I'm like, do the step work. I mean, that's my response. Like it's like
Yeah.
if you don't get that done, if you don't get that done, you can't say that you've been working on the program and it's not working for you.
I
The
agree with
program
you.
literally is that. It literally is that.
Yes.
It says, here is our program of action. It doesn't say,
Yeah.
go to a couple meetings and make coffee and you're going to be better, Bryant. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't say that, greet people at the door.
No.
Like you read in that book and there is nothing
Well,
about making coffee. There is nothing
no.
about meetings making you better. Like
No.
meetings are used like the function of a meeting is for us to get together and heal together. But the thing is that there's been too much emphasis put on meetings versus step work. Like
I think there's
it
yeah.
literally doesn't say anywhere in the book meetings will keep you sober. It does not say anywhere in the book 90 meetings in 90 days. It doesn't say anything. Like meetings good to meet a sponsor, to meet a new community of people, and to hopefully find your way to be working with someone who is going to guide you through the steps. Like that being
Yes.
your sponsor. But so for myself, this is honestly how I approach it. Like if you don't want to do the work, then we're pausing until you have your homework done. You
Hey,
know,
I think that's
like
fair.
I'm not setting aside that hour this week of my life if you're not setting
No.
aside the homework time. And whether people want to think that that's a fair way or not, it really doesn't matter to me because I'm not trying to
Fair.
people please on that subject. And I honestly don't think that recovery comes from procrastination.
Yeah, I
And
agree with you. I
yeah,
I think
like you,
there's an urgency and thoroughness, and because it's also tied into even even things like integrity, like like showing up or actually doing the thing you're supposed to do in between anything that is going to enhance your ability to do something requires discipline. This requires discipline. We are undisciplined. That is what seems to come through very strongly. Not that there weren't things that had like a lot of value or that you had achieved or I had achieved or we had achieved. There's a lack of discipline, and I think that's the integrity. And I think I totally agree with what you said. I do not believe a long lasting solution is available without doing that work. And like, yeah, not just to say you did it,
not to say you did it. What do you mean by that?
not to not to just say that you did it. In other words, there's a lot of
Yeah,
things in life where you rush through it and you're like, well, I completed that. This is not something that comes with that sort of
I
I don't
almost
know.
feel that the step working guides have demented some of the steps because people are trying to see it like I'm doing 3 questions a day. So this means I'm like and to me, it's not about the number of questions. Like those questions are really just to facilitate different philosophical perspectives,
I agree.
but the actual thing is doing exactly what the steps say and then
Yeah,
seeing what you come up with from it and what principles you need to work on,
yeah,
like to bring that integrity into your life. Like
yeah,
it's it, it's not like you get 99 out of 100 on that test. Okay, now you've got highest recovery mark I've ever seen. Like it's not like that. It's like, are you walking out that door and being honest? Are you being nice to someone? Are you having any compassion for
yeah.
that person? Like it is
I
living by these
totally agree.
principles. It's living by these principles, really.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it is.
You ready for another question?
I am ready.
Okay, BW. As we gain experience, we don't feel as much like we have to go out on a limb to act on our beliefs. We begin to trust that the result of letting go will not be a calamity. A series of spiritual awakenings add up to a steady faith. How has letting go been a part of the faith building process in your life, BW?
Thank you for the question. A beautiful question. The uh so okay, so I'll talk about what I experienced and how lovely that was, and then the challenge that came later. And it's unbelievable that this happened, but just as you said before, at the beginning, there's an experiential unfolding that gives you the courage to take on the next day. You know, whether that's I didn't drink today, I didn't drink this week. Oh, I actually showed up. Oh, I'm actually on step one. Oh, I actually stood up in front of that group of people and read something and I didn't have a heart attack. And oh, this and oh, that. And like, oh, I met this person and I no longer communicate with that person. All these things that come sort of naturally. There's a falling off and then there's a coming in because all this new stuff comes in because you're changing, right? And so I felt very relieved at how they talk about the like consistent feeling of loneliness. I don't know exactly physiologically or spiritually how it works, but I had like a very, very strong chronic feeling of loneliness within myself. Like not in my elbow, it wasn't behind my ear, like it was like in my heart. Like I felt alone forever. And I think that was a huge part of why my solution was to change the way I felt all the time. And we see this as a classic fact of people that suffer from addiction and alcoholism and other forms of, I guess you would call, um, self-soothing of some kind. But so that was really beautiful. I was like so scared to be alone. I was so scared that no one would invite me to anything ever again. I was so used to intoxicating myself in order to even function in social situations. You know, I didn't even know if I could go to a barbecue without feeling like I wanted to dig a hole. Like I, it's really sad to admit, but this was a fact of my life. And then, so that happened. And then because all that happened, I got this new courage. I'm not playing around with you. Like I don't want to take this like sound too silly here. I like actually thought bad things were not going to happen to me anymore. I was like, I'm going to live this way. I'm not going to create any more trouble for myself. I'm going to be as kind and as whatever as I can to others. And these things aren't going to happen to me now because those are the things that happen to people when they're living like that. And man, I got schwacked. And like I obviously knew that like my loved ones may still continue to struggle with things. I knew that like there's no such thing as driving down the street without upsetting someone while you're driving. It was sort of like I felt this empowerment of like if people were going to be nasty, that was on them, you know? Like I was like, I'm not going to do that kind of stuff anymore. And if you're going to be nasty, that's because you haven't figured this out yet or whatever. And I thought I innocently thought that I might not have to like have some of these like really sad, challenging things happen in my life. And I share that with you because it goes back to the letting go. When these things started happening, I had to readjust. I started panicking again. I'm like, what? This can't be happening, you know? Truly, I was like, what have I done wrong? Why is this happening? Like, why is God allowing this to happen? And all this other stuff. And I'm learning again, you know, to let go of this identity that thought that it could outsmart or like, you know, kind of not have to face some of these like more challenging things in life. It was okay back then because I was sort of bringing it on myself, but not now. I'm like, this can't be happening now. And so I tie those two things together, and I talk about the innocent making fun of myself because it gets harder actually, because you're upgrading your relationship with life and it still comes with like fury.
Yeah. Well put, brother. I love that.
Yeah,
Still comes with fury. Woo.
it
EW is
does.
a sizzler. You know, man.
How about for you?
Okay, so I mean, there's kind of a few things to unpack inside here. Feel like we have to go out on a limb to act on our beliefs. You know, I think for the longest time, I was using my expectations of the future as a defense mechanism to remain dishonest, to remain people pleasing, to remain incompassionate, because it was like, ooh, can't do this because that would open the door for somebody to treat me this way. And if I just don't do that, then that's never going to happen. And then boom,
Yeah,
it would happen anyway, because
yeah,
guess what? I'm not the puppeteer of the entire fucking world. And, and, um, and like I'm trying, I say that, I want to learn acceptance as the goal in my life. And I, it, all I'm getting are things that are testing that acceptance. Guess what? That's how you learn acceptance. You don't learn
yeah,
acceptance by the world going fucking smoothly. And it's just like, I feel like I just keep getting like calamity after calamity. It's like, like, how accepting do you want to be? Okay, here we go. One in the face, one in the gut, one in the back, one in and it's just like, here we go over and over and over and over. And, but I'm still here. I'm still making it through. I'm still able to write songs and smile and still have a
yeah.
relatively blessed, amazing life. You know,
Right.
so like one of the things that I was recently had a conversation with my sponsor about is, I said I'm being shown more things that literally are like proof for me to have faith on. I'm like, yet I
Yeah,
feel like I should have more faith, you
sure.
know? I'm given as much evidence towards faith in my life as I ever have. And yet
Uh,
I still feel like I should have more faith. Even if like
sure,
I'm being shown the evidence of it. And
sure.
you, you know, um, and he,
Okay.
he kind of he reassured me. He said that's a good thing. He said, like, first of all, he's like, um, what one of the things they call is like the state of being a seeker, is that
Yeah,
like you want to have some uh, um, you want to have a certain level of being happy at where you're at, but you don't want
yeah.
entirely, or you would never, you would become complacent inside your program. So like
You're right.
it's like you want to have serenity, but you also want to have discomfort. And you want those two, like
Oh,
so that you just keep growing. So, and I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, I can take that because like I've seen complacency be the killer of many a friend right now with relapses and stuff. And
yeah.
that is one state that I do not want to enter into. And you know, and
No.
and part of doing this podcast has been the fact that I keep getting pushed on different topics and different conversations. You know,
That makes sense.
mm, on an unrelated topic. You know,
Yeah.
I would uh I would really like one of our podcasts together to be tied in with the personal coaching that you do. And I would like to talk
Yeah.
about that subject involved with how you would approach an addict with it versus a non-addict. If there would be a
That's an
difference or
amazing
not.
idea.
Yeah. And, because there's a lady from Luxembourg I met down here, and we're doing a podcast on Wednesday, and it's about habit building and
Yeah.
also, finding real friends with similar goals, like because
Yeah.
you kind of have to shed a lot of your old community when you enter into the
Mhm.
program, or man, you've got a lot more willpower than I do to just sit. Like I'm not going to sit there and watch people using. That's just not happening.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
partying's not a spectator sport for me, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Like I'm okay that everybody wants to continue what is good for them, or not good for them. It's your choice. But I don't have to sit
Absolutely.
there and watch. I don't have to sit there and watch. And I honestly, like when somebody calls me and they're like, "Oh, I'm so hungover," I'm like, I'm like, "Great
No
for
doubt.
you, sucker, sucker," because I spent my time in that prison, and I'm out, and I'm
Yeah.
out. You can't drag me back to the cell. I'm out.
No, very unpleasant. And I think you said a couple things quickly back there. I'll just be very quick on it. Is
Yeah.
the faith? So my answer to your question actually was talking about faith. I just didn't say the word. Like I say courage often, but like that is the faith. And I do
Mm,
believe that, like, so at the beginning it was the coming to faith, and now it's
mm.
continuing in it, because these like things that are, they don't, the equation that I thought I was writing, I'm like, this can't be the answer. Like, and it's like, yeah, what are you gonna do? You know,
Mm.
this is hilarious. It's not hilarious, but I watched Braveheart the other day,
Yep.
and when he's a little guy, his uncle comes to pick him up because his father had passed away. And he said, "We're going to leave." And he says, "I don't want to leave." And he's like, "But you didn't want your father to die either, but you're leaving." Like, he's like, "That's what happened." And so
Yeah.
life can be pretty harsh, And what do you do when those big ticket items come and that's put on your plate? You would hope that the faith you acquired in the early time has the strength. What did someone say to me last year? I went through a really challenging time, and a good friend of mine said, "Your anchor held." Like, and it like made me
Yeah.
super emotional. She's like, "Your anchor held," like she's like, "Your foundation
Mm,
held," because it was really hard. And I
mm,
just remember being like, holy shit, like it did hold, but it was like
mm.
really scary. So
And that's why I think we have to be strong in our program because
yeah, you
life is
gotta
going to be
have,
strong in what it throws at you. Like if you
yeah, I
think the
agree.
life is the life, if you think if you're playing softball with life, man, it is the fastest fastball you ever going to deal with. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yep.
wild. But to
I love
again,
that
you got to
the
see the
anchor held.
beauty. Yeah, the anchor held. Thank God.
You got another question, BW?
Here's a BW here. Okay. So so when we spoke in the last one, I talked about your motives and have they changed? In this season of your life, letting go. So do you find that you letting go of what previously brought you a sense of security, whether that was financial, or you mentioned kind of casting into the future these things, whether it was avoidance or expectations. Do you find that now there's sort of a letting go of what previously made you feel secure, knowing that yes, if those things went well, that you would probably be better off, but no longer relying on that for a sense of security?
So I've had no sense of security inside the program. And so the only
Yeah.
feeling of security that I've had, like I've watched a massively successful financial situation crumble. And we could lose
Yeah.
our house. We could lose our house this year. And I'm not saying that for a pity party. I'm saying that for context. Yet,
Sure.
on a day-to-day basis, I'm finding that I'm experiencing more joy and serenity than I've ever had. So it's like
Okay.
the thing that I have to fight is to the when the anxiety of the future starts squirrel caging in my brain. And
Yes.
and that comes when I don't have enough sleep or when I have too much caffeine and also when I don't have enough exercise. like,
That
or
makes sense.
even eating sugar, actually, even eating sugar can have that effect, like the post sugar, like little kid meltdown. I realized I still suffer from that, like when that happens. And,
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's a lot of treats here in Mexico. I like, so I feel that I
Yeah.
really, I really have some like doing this podcast, right? Most of the time when we're
Yeah.
doing the podcast, I'm here. I don't have mental space to be here and someone else
Yeah.
and somewhere else. Like, like trying to really answer these questions involves me being fairly present. And
Present.
if it doesn't, I don't know, like where I am if I'm not, because I feel like I'm here. And similarly with music, like
Yeah.
I've been writing some really interesting to me songs recently, and
Yeah.
and and when I have, um, I feel like I'm really pulling some presence into the excellence of my parts in them. And I'm not saying, oh, everybody, look at my great songs. But what I'm saying is that it's like, look at the songs that are great to me.
Sure.
Like to me, what I'm doing in them is it's something that I'm proud of because I've taken enough time in those moments to
Yeah.
execute my parts to the best of my ability, which is far beyond what my ability used to be, you know?
Yeah.
And the only way that I can do that is being entirely in the present moment. So
So amazing.
I think I think that I'm spending hardly any time in the past and so much less time in the future and so much more time in today now. So, you
That's
know,
amazing.
um, I think that, the answer to the question is that I'm here more. I'm here and now more
Amazing.
than I ever was. Yeah.
I believe you. Yeah. So isn't that so interesting? It's sort of like, I think that's the ultimate letting go. It's like when the things that should or did or we were told would be our security are no longer presenting as secure, and then you feel this inner integrity. And of course it comes and goes. You mentioned the moon and the sunset, or the sun or the moon setting, and then this collaboration of fear and anger in the morning. It's so interesting. So what I noticed just on that, should I answer that now?
Yeah. Go, Brad. Go.
The coolest thing, I think there's been this consistent thing, and it was very real at the beginning. They talk about waiting for the world to change. I was hoping that my family and everything, all these things would fall into place, and then I would feel secure, and then I wouldn't drink the way I drink. And it's the exact opposite. And sometimes we don't ever get to see the result we were hoping for in this life. For example, my cousin, bless his heart, passed away from addiction a few years ago. And we had several conversations about abstinence, self control, and all this stuff. And I wasn't budging on my revelation of understanding that that was the only sane, logical, and thing that had ever worked for me was to abstain. And he was convinced that that's sort of like the weaker road, and the goal is to become self controlled and all this other stuff. God rest his soul. But the point is, when it comes to, it's like that inner, you either outgrow, my experience has been that I either outgrow things or I adapt and change. If I wait for it to change, that's not how it's going to work. So the main thing for me when I talk about surrendering, to that type of thing, it's like I am the one that has to adapt, and I feel like I now know how, and it's always through acceptance. Acceptance is letting go. They're the
Yes.
same thing,
Essentially,
in
yeah.
my opinion.
And also though, you just mentioned waiting for it to change. That
Yes.
really that is an expectation because you are trying to like will the change of
Yes,
something else. Like that's literally what an expectation is, you know? I like
exactly. And
one of the ladies on the meeting online that I go on, you know, she said, "What's the opposite of an expectation? Reality."
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
"Yep."
So if I've ever had a really strong relief or a moment of gratitude where I reflect back on something that I thought was taking me off my course, or it was taking me out of my serenity, or it was happening to me, or how could anybody do this to me? If I ever sit in peace after these storms, or I find myself relieved of that, it's because it didn't change. I changed. And I often share that. It's like, in spite of me, they say, in spite of me. So I find a real warming and like powerful thing that comes with that, because it allows us to continue trudging the road, knowing that the outside likely won't change, but we certainly can change inside, and be relieved of that, it's pretty amazing.
It truly is. You ready for the next question?
I am.
Okay, BW. We can turn a simple setback into a drama that lasts forever and is
Huh.
everyone else's fault. We
Yeah.
get through difficulty much more quickly if we simply accept it and keep moving. Letting go gets easier when we learn not to hold on so tightly. How has not letting go kept you trapped in the past in some areas of your life? Question mark. And explain. You're basically pulling your pants down in front of the crowd now, Bryant.
This is the reveal. um that's a really good question, and I think it goes hand in hand with the removing of defects. It's a process. Um, some of the coolest things that have happened in my life, and I've had a lot of older kind of mentor type people share these experiences with me. I think it's probably the most beautiful thing we'll ever have in our experience. The two things that I think stand out the most is living a life. I don't need it to, like, okay, purpose is lovely, meaningful, lovely, but having a life that gives you peace of mind. And then, so back to the other main part is like, your relationship with yourself and others will be, to my understanding thus far, the like pottery. It's the pottery. It's like you're molding, you're going through these birth pains. Like, I've heard people that have like had miracles happen in relationships, family dynamics. We're friends with people that were homeless, that have jobs that are helping other people, that have fallen in love, that used to sleep under benches and didn't care if they woke up in the morning. Like, miracles happen. And I've been told by numerous people that they were diligent in their perception, or sorry, in their pursuit of mending relationships, whether that's with their children, with their parents. And in my own life, that's been like the main thing of like that letting go. It's like I see my dad and my mom, and I see these people that I used to think had like harmed me and should have done things differently. There's this total equaling of the playing field, and this new appreciation for that person's own journey, their setbacks, limitations, whatever occurred in their life to create that dynamic, and then this opportunity to heal those things. Like, there's people that got to sit with their parents while they were passing away after not talking for 20 years, or like taking other people's kids in after somebody's had a catastrophe and there's been a car accident and people adopt. Like, there's these beautiful things that happen that do not happen in the other world that we lived in.
No, that's for sure.
Sorry, that was a bit, but
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was great. I was
yeah.
Oh, it's like, yeah, go, baby.
I just
um,
think it grants us an opportunity to like heal and get to unite with the things that are truly the most important things in this life. That's how I feel about that.
Absolutely. You know, I keep trying to let go. I keep trying to let go of a lot of stuff, and I think it's a multi-year process. I'd be
Yeah,
lying to say, like, um, and I see it when I'm, hitting the moment of judging someone else inside the program, and then I'm like, whoa, they're just a sick person like me. Like
exactly.
I gotta pull back and be like, whoa, sometimes, like, um, just because somebody's 10 years clean doesn't mean that they're not dishonest or not sneaky or not
Oh,
angry or not, like there's so many character defects that, you know, I can easily identify in others and retrospectively identify in myself. You know,
totally.
like there's a lot of stuff where the interaction's over before I even see the part I played in it. And
Yeah.
I'm still learning to pull myself through that. And so, um it's hardest with the people that I love because those
Exactly.
relationships have some really entrenched action reaction things that it's like
Absolutely.
once it gets to like a heated point, once it gets to a heated point, I don't think anybody in the room's being nice, like not myself included. And then
Yeah.
it just then I go into my justified self-protection mode, which is really just me
Oh
being
yeah.
as big of an ass as so that I can feel like I'm not the only one who's getting hurt here. Like
Yeah.
that seems to be something that I'm seeing in myself is that, I'm like, and that's one thing I need to let go of is that like making sure that I'm not the only one getting hurt just means that I'm going to be a jerk too,
Yeah. That makes
you know?
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
So
like,
yeah.
yeah, just to clarify that piece that I just said is that entire statement required forgiveness and letting go. They call it repentance. It's a re you're recreating a scenario in your mind. Like a resentment is reliving something over and over again, and to repent about something is to recreate that idea of something in your mind so that you can alleviate, because it crystallizes. It's like, this is what
Mm,
happened, and it's like, is that what happened or is that what you thought happened? Because
yeah.
they say fancied or perceived or something, right? Because we live out of our own idea of what's going on. Like the amount of times where I've been like, like I've said something to someone and they're like, that's not what I meant, or like, no, that's not what we were saying, and it could be this huge thing.
Our own perception is our own reality. And until we start
Yeah,
to look at things with enough humility to actually own our part, right? Then
yeah.
then we can never move forward because
Well said.
it's really easy for us to cloud our perception so that it can cloud our reactions.
I agree.
Yeah. Do you have another question for me, Mr. BW?
I do. And it's sort of all in alignment with what we're talking about. So I guess I would propose the question: have you noticed that the steps or the action based program has had the power to heal behavior and habits you also want to let go? Which I guess is, of course, we hope so. That's the point. But have you noticed that actually, like, directing those exact same procedure at another habit or behavior has worked for you to let
It
go of?
helped me so much. It's helped me so much with guilt, with shame,
Okay, amazing.
with anxiety, um, and definitely, expectation reduction, not
Yeah.
expectation elimination yet, but like it's like harm reduction, like I'm trying to get it down. Um, and it's also just brought an awareness of so many things that I didn't see. So,
Yeah.
like I think that these steps are invaluable tools for the potential for change. One of the
Yeah.
ladies who comes on the podcast, she always says, "How free do you want to be?" And it's like,
Yeah.
how free you want to be depends on how hard you want to work and how honestly you want to take a look at yourself.
Yeah.
Like you need to be able to dig deep and keep getting kicked in the balls in order to actually get past that ball kicking.
Yeah.
It's a game of Rochambeau.
Great answer. I'm relieved when you there's been two or three of the questions where immediately your response, I feel like you've really connected with it and brought up the things that I was hoping you would. So that's awesome.
I love your brain,
And
man.
for
I love
me,
your brain.
thanks, man. So I'll be frank, I use this to quit smoking. Um, and I'm using it to complement the things you said. Major improvement with guilt. Um, Major improvement with expectations. The new thing for me is I want people to love me the way I want them to love me, not the way that they're capable of from where they are in that moment of their life. I'm like, you got to love me better than that. I'm like, you got to be better than that. And they're like, this is all I've got to give because and I'm like,
Yep.
we can do we can do better than this,
Yep.
So
That's
I have to
intolerance and lack of acceptance right there.
yeah, so I have to accept the love that people are expressing to me from where they're at and not expect it to be different than it is. Um, that's the new hard work. And then the other major thing is um, facing the fear of going into uncharted territory in your own heart. Because sometimes people aren't going to come with you.
Mhm.
Like you might have to
Yep.
go in there by yourself for a little while, and it can be scary.
Absolutely.
So I need that process to combat that. Like I need the action based program to navigate those times. Like I have to do step 3. If I don't turn it over and I don't talk to someone, if I don't do my 10, 11, and there's just things that need to be done in order to get through a day, because it's always the day.
Absolutely. I took some couples counseling with my wife in the fall, and one of the things, the very first exercises was he got us to try and remember our two earliest memories, our two earliest good memories, and our two earliest bad memories. And he said,
Wow.
right from that, you'll establish what
A
each other's
pattern.
needs are. Like when
Okay.
you
Okay.
don't like something, it's something that you don't want in your life. So what was that? That memory, was that memory of anger? Was it lack of safety? Was it, and then what was the good memory? Was it, being with family? Was it playing? Was it, exercising? Was it, like, anyway? So then what it is
That's
that
cool.
from those four memories each, you now know what your partner wants and doesn't want. Right there.
That's
Right
pretty
there.
cool.
He's like those early formative needs stay with you your whole life.
Mm.
And so it was really amazing because I don't think we knew each other as well as we thought we did. And so it was an educational experience to see that, okay, this is what I need to start providing in order for her needs to be feeling met. And
What a gift.
it is. And so I've repeated that on the show a few times because I know that everybody's got to work on their relationship or they're going to be single. Like that's the
Yeah.
inevitable fact of life. And
Yeah.
yeah. So, okay, I've got one last question here. Do you have another question for after that?
I'm out.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one now. Okay,
Okay,
so
lovely.
then this is going to be our last question that we get to ask. Okay, so letting go of expectations can be a nice name for letting go of control. Allowing our partners and ourselves to experience personal autonomy means we can grow and change at our own pace, and the relationship can benefit from what each of us brings to it. God, this sounds like it was catching right up to what you were saying. When we are willing to stand still and be present in a relationship, even as it changes or as we change, we come to understanding commitment in a new way. How has this been your
Whoa.
experience or not, Mr. BW?
Did you say has it been or not?
Yes. Well, like I mean,
Well,
you either understand commitment in a new way or you haven't seen
or
that
not,
part of
yes.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a really cool question too. So it comes down to a few things. So there's the courage to change the things I can. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of humility that comes with admittance of weakness. It's very powerful for people that love us to see us say I was wrong. It also, I'm getting more and more in touch with this, like nurturing other people's, like you talked about the people pleasing, like nurturing other people's weaknesses is becoming a real, it's something I'm trying to avoid. You can allow other people the right to be wrong, but I don't want to nurture people's weaknesses when they're clearly, not benefiting them and or our relationship. Um, I have not. One of my biggest disappointments in my entire life is seeing the failure of people that I care about deeply rising to the occasion in commitment. The lack thereof has been one of the most disappointing things because I'm a bit of a to the death, like I think even if it's messy, like let's commit, like let's get through this. I'm one of those types of people. I get really, really sad when people give up, even though some things are meant to come and go. I really find it sad when people think that they're going to find a better way instead of dealing with what's directly in front of them. Does that make sense?
Wherever you go, there you are.
That's right. And so that became really clear to me in my early 20s. For the first time in my life, I realized like if I was on a beach in Hawaii and surrounded by whatever, I would still be unhappy. I knew within myself that the unhappiness was beyond an external solution. And that was really scary. But now when that happens, I know there is a solution. So that's really good. So back to the commitment though, just to wrap up my response is that I have a bunch of people in my life that I'm committed to, and it's never going to change. And the greatest gift I've given myself is the ability to allow them to be themselves. And you talked about that autonomy. It's critical, but relationship requires a very, very keen mindfulness of others. And I think that we fall short of that a lot. And, I don't think that's a judgment. I think that that's the human experience. Like, where do I end and where do you begin? And how much can I rely on you? I don't want you to do things for me, but can I rely on you? Like these are things that are really important to me. But,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, just allowing other people the opportunity to fail and succeed. Um, if I'm invited, great. If I'm not, I accept that, and it took me a long time to be more open minded, more mature, more loving under pressure.
Yeah.
So commitment's critical to get the real fruit. You'll never taste the fruit without the commitment, but people struggle with that, it seems, these days in a lot of areas. But you got your siblings, your kids, depending on your circumstances, and you can't give up on those people. Codependency, there's all these words that are just like absolutely like becoming very common things that everybody's aware of now. But there's certain people we can't give up on, and I accept the gnarly adventure of walking the road with these people in our lives, because they're a gift at the same time, you know.
I always say that your friends and lovers are the people whose faults you accept.
It has to be the
You know,
case.
the rest of the people in the world are the ones whose faults you didn't accept and you don't want to have in your presence. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
um, this one's there's a lot in this one.
Oh yeah.
This question. And I really don't want to control other people. And I
Yeah.
find that, in the present moment, I'm pretty good at not controlling other people, but I try to control you in the future with expectations. And I try to let go of that,
Yeah.
and I'm fighting with that, like even
Ooh.
when you were saying earlier, it's like, I want a certain like grade of love, you know, but that's still an expectation, you
Oh, it
know,
sure is.
like, and I feel that the difference between a boundary and an expectation is a really wavering line at some points in relationships, because you've got to be giving grace to people because you're constantly expecting it,
You're right.
and
That's an
and
amazing, amazing thing that you just said.
thanks, brother, but it's true,
It
and
is.
um and I struggle with it all the time. And one thing though is that we've now, my wife and I have been together for 24 years this March. And
Wow.
so it has not been an easy road. I say that we are together by the sheer power of her forgiveness, you know, and
Well, that's amazing.
but um, so the way the only way for us to continue though, for me, is if we continue to grow. And that's what we got whatever counseling we could afford, and we literally got a list of kind of tools to be working with. The work has gone downhill a little bit since we've been here in Mexico. I feel like,
Yeah.
I feel like we were more
Yeah.
regular on it. But, it's about understanding the other person's needs and whether you're willing to deliver them. Like, if you're not willing to satisfy someone else's needs, then you're just being selfish and you should just be single, as far as I'm concerned. You know,
Sure.
like there has to be compromises in action and intention inside a
I agree.
relationship. Because if there isn't, then you're really just still coming from a self-centered place. And we can't afford the
Couldn't agree
luxury
more.
of going there. We can't afford the luxury of being too self-centered, because that's going to
No.
take us back out, you know? And then, I've seen, like I see my parents, and what they're going through, and my dad having his strokes and my mom having his cancer. And, like at the end when they really need to rely on each other in their older years,
Yeah.
dude, that's commitment, man. It's not
That's what
commitment
I'm
when you're
talking
like,
about.
it's not commitment when you're on a dance floor having fun in your 30s. That is not
This is what I'm
commitment.
talking about, man.
Yeah. And it's just like there is like, watching Jesse's parents be together right till the end of her mom passing away this fall, and that dementia, and seeing that unwavering love from both of them, like, dude, that's admirable commitment, you
That's
know?
the most beautiful thing in life. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me, I'm done with that. I'm good for today. I think we had a great episode. What about you? You got anything you want to say
I
before the end?
only that I'm grateful. I think we both um benefit from sharing our ideas and our thoughts, and a lot of the time you don't get a chance to put this stuff into words. You might share it, and but to say it in a sequence of ideas, because they're little things that have happened in our own minds and souls over these years, where you're like, I've taken note of this, and we get to actually talk
Yeah.
about it. So it's a really beautiful experience, and I think you have wonderful questions, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you again.
Me too, having you here, brother. I just am loving it. I feel like this is us taking a little bit of time to nourish our souls and our relationship to each other. And I love that. You know?
Me too.
Yep. I would like to say, tune in next episode for more recovery fun. See you later, everybody.
See you later.
Please help us help others. If you'd like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.